The most dangerous thing you can do is decide someone is perfect. Once you canonize a person, you stop seeing what they take from everyone around them. I know, because I was there when the industry did that with Beyonce. I watched Destiny's Child turn into an altar. Destiny's Child, not Destiny's Children. In that studio, I saw credits twist, voices erased from songs they'd recorded, and live moments that never really breathed. Mixes I'd signed off on came back with only one voice where there used to be four. That's when I understood. We weren't just worshiping her. We were feeding something standing behind her, using her voice as bait. Keep listening, and I'll show you what it did to the rest of us, and what it might still be taking from you every time you press play. I didn't notice the shadow the first time I met her. Back then it was just a feeling, like the air in Studio B got heavier when she walked in. This was '99 in Houston. Studio B was the windowless box at the end of the hall, tan foam stapled over cinder block, carpet that never stopped smelling like cigarette smoke and hairspray, a 2-inch tape machine humming in the corner, an early Pro Tools rig wheezing under the desk, Yamaha NS10s staring at me like two small, angry eyes on the meter bridge. I was the new ears. That's what the A and R guy called me. Group's called Destiny's Child, he said, dropping a reel beside the console. They're about to be everywhere. We just need somebody who can make them sound global. I'd done local R&B, church records, a couple of indie projects. Nothing like this, but the check was good, and the way he said everywhere made it sound like if I nailed this, my whole life would flip. They came in like any other act, not like legends, just girls. Kelly came in first. Tall, big smile, arms open like the room belonged to her. She went straight into the live room, glanced at the mics and headphones like she'd done this 1,000 times. Latavia and Latoya slipped in behind her, linked at the arm, still laughing about something from the parking lot. They waved at me through the glass. Normal, human, then Beyonce. She didn't rush. She moved like someone who already knew where the camera would be, even in a room with no cameras. Soft, hey y'all, a small wave, and somehow the air got tighter. I remember thinking she looked young and exhausted at the same time, like a kid who'd been awake for years. Her father came in last. I didn't see his face. Not really. I saw his outline in the control room glass as he paused in the doorway behind me. Tall, shoulders squared, glasses catching the overhead fluorescence. He didn't step all the way in. He stopped right in that border between hallway light and studio dark. From my chair, the doorframe blocked his eyes. All I got was a silhouette, a patch of black that was somehow darker than the hallway behind it. Then he shifted backward, out of sight. I hit the talkback. All right, I said, let's get some levels. I'd set up 4 mics in a loose arc, choir style. Old habit. I liked hearing groups as groups, not just 1 star and 3 decorations. Beyonce walked straight to the center mic. Nobody told her to. She just knew. The others drifted to the side mics without thinking, like planets sliding into orbit. Let's do this one as a group first, I said. We'll stack the hook, then we'll pick leads. Cool? Kelly grinned. Bet. I got an idea for... Beyonce's gaze slid past her, up toward the glass. Not at my face. Slightly above my head. Like there was something standing behind me she was checking in with. My neck prickled. I turned, even though I knew no one was there. Empty second chair, racks, tape machine. When I looked back, his outline was sharper in the reflection, arms crossed, head bent, watching. Lead first, Beyonce said into the mic, still staring over my shoulder. Then group. Her tone was gentle, calm. The talkback popped with a tiny burst of static when she said, lead. Lead first, I heard myself repeat. We'll get the rest after. Kelly shot me a quick look, confused, a little hurt. I pretended not to see it. My hand dropped to the transport. Rolling, I said, and hit record. Beyonce sang the whole track top to bottom in one take. No warm-up, no, let me punch that line, no searching for notes. It felt less like she was performing and more like the song had already happened somewhere else and she was playing it back through her body. When she finished, the other three clapped through the glass. I didn't. I was watching the meters. 4 inputs coming into the board. Only one of them really moved. I told myself that was just how pop worked, that every group had a main voice, that I was lucky to even be in the room. I didn't realize that even then, before the lawsuits and the lineup changes and the solo deals, the studio had already chosen whose voice was allowed to exist and whose were just there to be swallowed. The thing about studios is you start to trust the room more than you trust yourself. If the meters say something happened, you believe it. If the files say somebody didn't sing, after a while, you start to doubt your own memory. That's how it started to feel with Destiny's Child. Session after session, the pattern never changed. I'd set up all 4 mics in that same arc. I'd label channels with all their names. I'd tell myself, today, we'll spread it out. Today, it'll sound like 4 girls instead of 1. And every time, something nudged it back to center. Sometimes it was Beyonce. Sometimes it was the shadow behind her. We were cutting a mid-tempo one night, something with that writing on the wall feel. I'd mapped out the arrangement in my head. Kelly on the pre, Beyonce on the hook, share the verses. Easy. Let's try you on this lift, I said to Kelly. Your tone will cut nice there. Through the glass, she lit up. For real. Before I could even arm the track, Beyonce lifted one side of her headphones, listening like there was a noise only she could hear. I don't think that's her range, she said. We don't want to confuse the sound. The talkback mic wasn't on, but I still heard the words as if they'd been piped straight into my ear. Behind her, just at the edge of the frame, her father's outline leaned a little closer to the glass. Static kissed the monitors, a tiny, ugly ripple in the high end. It's just a try, I said, forcing a laugh. We can mute it if it's weird. We don't have time for experiments, he said from the hallway. The door to the control room was cracked open. He hadn't stepped inside. He never did. His voice slid through the opening anyway, low and smooth. People come for one voice, he added. You start scattering it around. You dilute the brand. Dilute the brand, Beyonce repeated quietly, almost like she was practicing the phrase. Kelly pulled her shoulders in, like she was trying to make herself smaller. It's cool, she said. Whatever y'all want. My hand went to the arm button on her channel. It didn't light up. I pressed it again. Nothing. Beyonce's channel stripped, though. The red rec light blinked once like an eye and came on by itself. I stared at it. That ever happened before? I asked the assistant later when everyone was gone. What? He said. Channel arming itself, I said, bored acting like it knows better. He shrugged. Maybe you hit it and didn't notice. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. After a while, every little glitch started to feel like the room taking sides. We cut a feature with a male singer around that time. Big R and B name. He came in all charm and cologne, slapping hands, hugging the girls. During a break, I caught him in the hallway talking to Kelly. You killing it, I heard him say. They need to let you shine more. She laughed it off, but there was a crack in it. I don't really get to pick, she said. When they came back in, the singer cornered her father at the door. Let her take this verse, he said. Trust me. That tone, crazy. It'll hit the ladies different. Her father smiled. It was the same smile he gave label reps and execs, all teeth and warmth. You sure? He asked. I don't think that's a good idea for the group. The word group rolled out like a joke only he was in on. I watched it happen from behind the console. One man sticking up for a voice, another man gently pushing the idea back down under the carpet. You manage all of them, right? The singer asked. Ain't that the point? I manage Destiny's Child, he said. Destiny's Child, not Destiny's Children. He said it lightly, like a punchline. But when he did, the overhead lights dimmed a touch. The NS10S hissed. My session file, perfectly fine a second before, flashed a yellow warning box. Audio file missing. Then it vanished before I could even read the rest. I blinked. "Everything okay?" Beyonce asked, looking through the glass. The missing file message was gone. The track list looked normal, but when I hit play, the little 8-bar riff I'd been editing, a riff I knew I'd cut from Kelly's earlier warm-up, was gone. The space on the timeline where it had lived was clean, like it had never been. Yeah, I lied. Just a glitch. The singer shrugged, gave up the argument. He laid his part over Beyoncé's leads. It sounded amazing. That's the worst part. The record slapped. The label was going to love it. On the Rough Mix CD I burned that night, under lead vocals, I wrote 3 names: Beyoncé, Kelly, feature. In the reflection on the CD's silver surface, I could see my own face. And just behind my shoulder, distorted by the curve of the disc, a taller shape with glasses catching a strip of light. By the time the record came out, there was only one female lead vocal in the liner notes. Not an accident, not a typo. Reality, edited. I told myself this was just how power worked, that I was exaggerating. You ever walk past the same picture so many times you stop really seeing it? There was a Destiny's Child poster in the hallway outside Studio B. 4 girls in matching outfits, Beyoncé in the middle. The others fanned around her. I'd pass it 10 times a day on coffee runs, bathroom breaks, smoke breaks. It was just there. One Monday, rushing in with a dat in one hand and a cold coffee in the other, something about it snagged at the edge of my vision. I stopped. Same pose, same logo, same color palette, but the faces on the ends were wrong, not missing, blurred, like whoever printed it dragged their thumb across the ink before it dried. The eyes on the far left girl were soft, unfocused. Her mouth was a smudge of almost teeth, almost smile. As I stared, the blur twitched. For half a second, the face underneath pressed up against the glossy paper. Eyes, nose, mouth fighting through plastic, like someone trying to scream behind soundproof glass. The fluorescent light above flickered. When it came back steady, the smudge was smooth again. The girl was an outline with no features. That afternoon, the next week's schedule went up at the front desk. Time slots, song titles, just 3 names under Destiny's Child. I told myself I'd misremembered how many names had been there the week before. That was becoming my favorite lie. I must have remembered wrong. Old sessions didn't help. On a break that night, I pulled up a ballad we'd cut a month earlier. I could still picture the tracking day, 4 girls huddled around 2 mics, sharing headphones, laughing when they stepped on each other's lines. I remembered deciding to keep a take where LaToya's voice cracked because it felt human. I soloed the lead. Only Beyoncé. I dug through playlists, alternate comps, backups. Everywhere I thought I'd tucked another voice, there she was instead. Same tone, same phrasing, same perfect breath. The others were still in the session. Technically, faint harmonies low in the mix, ghost consonants, little puffs of air that could just as easily have been the room. My memory argued with the screen. The screen won. In the control room glass, her father's shadow stood in the doorway reflection, arms crossed, head bowed, like a pastor waiting for someone to confess. That was the night I decided to do one thing, right before I got swallowed completely. Just one. It ended up being a Sunday. The label liked to pretend weekends didn't exist, but Sundays were still looser. Fewer people around, fewer eyes. I called Kelly. "Got something I want to try," I said. "Just you and a guitar loop. You free?" She laughed, that nervous little laugh she did when she was excited and scared at the same time. "For real?" she asked. "You sure?" She smiled then, not the polite industry smile, not the "we're on 106 and Park" smile. Something smaller, softer. The kind of smile people have when they see themselves reflected back honestly for the first time in a long time. We turned the main lights down and left only a couple of lamps on. I put up a Neumann, set the pop filter, handed her the headphones. First take, she was shaky, searching. Second take, her voice started to sit down in the track. She leaned into certain words, and that little crack in her tone showed up. The one I loved, the one that made lyrics sound like they actually heard. By the third, she wasn't thinking anymore. She just sang. When I hit stop, she stayed there a moment, eyes closed, both hands on the headphones like she was trying to hold on to whatever she'd just pulled out. "Come hear this," I said. She hopped into the control room and perched on the arm of my chair. I comped a quick lead, nothing surgical, just instinct. A phrase from take 2 here, a line from take 3 there. I left the imperfections, the missed breath, the little choke on one note that made the whole verse feel like a confession. We listened in silence. She sounded like herself, not Beyonce light, not texture, just Kelly, front and center, human. "I sound," she started, then stopped. "Like the person who's actually singing," I said. She laughed, wiping at one eye. "Don't erase that," she said. "Please." "I won't," I said, and I meant it. I backed it up 3 different ways. A reel labeled Kelly Lead, ballad in fat black Sharpie, a copy on the external drive, a CD I burned right then, writing her name first on the line for lead vocal, just to see how it looked. For once, the room felt light. No shadows in the doorway, no static in the talkback, just her voice hanging in the air like something holy. On the way out, she hugged me. "You don't know what this means," she said. The truth was I did. That's what scared me. When I locked up, the red record light on the tape machine blinked as it wound down, pulsing in the dark. On the drive home, the radio played their latest single. Beyonce's voice filled the car. Flawless, endless, everywhere. I turned it off. That night, I dreamed of the DAW screen. Not the room, not the girls, just the edit window, stretched to infinity, all the tracks slowly renaming themselves one by one. LEAD_KELLY_01, lead_Kelly_02, lead_comp, each label flickering, letters rearranging, until all 3 said the same thing. Beyonce_, lead_01. When I woke up, my heart was racing like I'd been chased. It was just a dream, I told myself. But when I walked into Studio B the next afternoon and saw who was already sitting at the console, waiting, I knew it hadn't really been a dream at all. It was a warning. When I walked into Studio B the next afternoon and saw who was already sitting at the console, waiting, I knew it hadn't really been a dream at all. Beyonce was in my chair, not perched on the edge like an artist checking mixes, settled, hands resting on the faders like she'd grown there overnight. No glam, just a t-shirt and sweats, ponytail pulled high, eyes calm. Her father stood behind her with one palm spread on the back of the chair back, his fingers almost reaching both armrests. The gesture was casual, possessive. Between them on the desk lay the reel I'd labeled Kelly Lead, ballad, already threaded. The Pro Tools session was open. "Afternoon," Beyonce said. "We wanted to hear what you worked on." My throat felt tight. "You went ahead and loaded it up," I said. "We were curious," her father replied. His voice seemed to come from somewhere above me, not from his mouth. "You've been experimenting." He said the word like it tasted bad. I slid into the second chair, suddenly the guest in my own room. The DAW window looked just like I'd left it. Track list neat. Lead_Kelly_01 highlighted. The headphones from yesterday still coiled on the desk. "Go on," he said. "Play it." I stared at the screen a second too long. In a studio, there's always that moment before you hit play. The last instant where the song is still just an idea in your head, all possibilities, no proof. Once you press the space bar, you're stuck with reality. I hit play. Beyonce's voice came out of the monitors on the first word. Not Kelly's. Not the cracked, breathing, too human tone I remembered. Perfect, bright, smooth as glass. Same rhythm, same melody, same lyric, different singer. My scalp prickled. I stopped the playback. The waveforms on the screen froze. "Where's Kelly's vocal?" I asked. Beyonce looked at her father. He looked at the screen. "You're hearing it," he said. "All of them. This is Destiny's Child." He tapped the console lightly with 2 fingers, like he was checking a coffin for hollow spots. I soloed the lead. Only her. I clicked through playlists. Lead_Kelly_02. Comp. Alt. All her. Maybe you bounced the wrong version, Beyonce suggested, voice soft. It happens. It doesn't, I said. My own voice sounded thin. The reel spun steadily. The tape counter rolled forward. The Pro Tools file sat there, calm, unbothered. Behind the glass, the live room was empty. In the reflection, it wasn't. In the control room window, I could see faint silhouettes. Girls in the corners, leaning against mic stands. Their bodies were outlined by the dim lamp in the live room, but their faces were wrong. Blurred, like the poster. They opened and closed their mouths in time with the lead vocal I'd just played, lips forming words we couldn't hear. Every time Beyonce hit a sustained note, one of the silhouettes dimmed. The files say she never sang it, her father said. You know how that works. If the session doesn't show it, it didn't happen. My backups, I started. Check them, he said gently. You're thorough. We appreciate that. Everything points to the same truth. He leaned over my shoulder, close enough that I could feel the cold weight of him without feeling any breath. You shape the sound, he murmured. We shape reality. His glasses caught a strip of light from the console, and for a second, I saw two tiny red reflections where his pupils should have been. Beyonce watched me, eyes hard to read. It sounds better this way, she said. Cleaner. I wanted to argue, to drag the reel off the machine, to shove the CD from my pocket into the drive and scream, listen. Instead, I sat there, hands idle in my lap, while the room decided what had and hadn't happened. I wish I could say that was when I walked. I didn't. I stayed through one more record, the We Survived song. By then, the lineup was stable again. 3 girls, 1 system. The arrangement formula was locked in. Beyonce on verse 1 and chorus, Kelly on verse 2, Michelle on the bridge, Beyonce bleeding through everything. We tracked it clean. They went home. The label loved the rough. On the last night, around 3 in the morning, when the assistant had passed out on the couch and the building was quiet, I did something stupid. I copied 4 bars of Michelle's bridge, just one raw line where her voice cracked, and pasted it under the hook stack. Low, barely audible. Just enough that if you listened close, you'd feel her there, under Beyonce's wall of sound. Not as texture, as spine. I hit play. For about 3 seconds it worked. The hook felt different. Less like a slogan, more like a testimony. 3 women instead of 1. A wobble in the middle of all that perfection that made the whole thing feel true. Then the room fought back. The NS10s popped hard enough to jolt the assistant awake. The SSL meters slammed into red and stayed there. The sound coming out of the speakers turned inside out, still technically the song, but under it I heard something else, like a choir practice recorded at the bottom of a well. Voices stacked on voices, too many to count, all trying to climb out at once. The lights overhead flickered. On the screen, the individual hook waveforms glitched, splitting, duplicating, then merging into one long, solid brick of audio with no peaks, no valleys. Did you hear that? Michelle's voice came through the talkback from a few hours earlier, delayed, disembodied, an echo of a moment that had already passed. I froze. In the glass, behind the ghost of her reflection, her father's shadow filled the live room. Not just standing in a doorway now, stretched up into the ceiling, bleeding into the corners, his outline swallowing the edges of the frame. His hand, longer than it should have been, rested on Beyonce's shoulder where she'd stood while we tracked earlier that day. The moment it touched her, all the extra voices cut off. The meters dropped to normal. The brick on the screen resolved back into separate tracks. Michelle's line vanished from the hook. The crack in her tone snapped back to the bridge, politely out of the way. The air smelled like hot dust and metal. Don't do that again, he said. He wasn't smiling now. In this room, you don't decide who survives, he added. That's my job, hers. I looked at Beyonce. She didn't look evil. She looked practiced, tired, resolved. We good? She asked. I stopped the tape. No, I said. The word surprised me as it left my mouth. I'm done. Silence. Kelly and Michelle exchanged a look but said nothing. They'd seen too many people vanish to believe any declaration meant anything. Her father studied me like I was a track he might mute. You sure? He asked. For once, I said. Yeah. He shrugged as if I'd just turned down an extra pizza slice. Okay, he said. There's always another engineer. Beyonce gave me that small, polite smile. Thank you for everything, she said. They filed out. The door closed. For the first time in months, I thought I was alone in Studio B. Then something pressed down on the back of my neck. No hand, no weight I could see. Just a cold, invisible palm pinning me to the moment. On the console, every light went out at once, except one. The red rec Lee D on Beyonce's channel flicked on by itself. On, off, like a heartbeat. You don't walk out, a voice said. It wasn't in the room. It wasn't in my head. It was in the space between. You carry it with you. The red light pulsed again, brighter, then died. Studio B went completely dark, and somewhere under my ribs, my own heartbeat tried to match the rhythm it had just learned. I wish I could tell you that once I walked out of Studio B, it all stopped. It didn't. I left the label clean. No blow up, no big speech. I just stopped taking their calls, changed my number, told myself I'd go back to what I knew. Church choirs, local acts, people who still got nervous when they saw a red record light. On paper, it worked. I set up shop in a smaller space across town. No giant SSL, no label plaques, just a modest console, a couple of decent preamps, a computer that didn't sound like it was dying every time I opened a session. New clients came in, kids with notebooks and USB drives, moms who wanted to cut gospel demos, rappers with cracked phones full of beats. But the room never felt completely mine. First time it happened, I was mixing a local girl group. 3 sisters, shy, all nerves and matching t-shirts they'd made themselves. Nothing like the machine I'd left. They nailed a hook. Raw, shaky, real. I stacked the harmonies, pushed the oldest sister a little forward in the mix, just enough to anchor. I soloed the chorus. For 1 second, it was them. Then the DAW glitched. The waveform didn't change, not visually, but the sound under my fingers shifted. The lid line smoothed out, brightened, wrapped itself in a tone I knew too well. I slammed the spacebar. Silence. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Everything okay? One of the sisters asked from the live room. Yeah, I lied. Just a buffer issue. I reopened the session. The audio files had their original timestamps. The regions were named with their names, not hers. But under the track list, a little text box had appeared where I hadn't typed anything. Lead vocal. Destiny's Child. I deleted it. It came back the next time I hit save. I started wearing headphones on the train. Not to listen to music, just to have something between my ears and the world. Anytime a familiar melody drifted in from someone else's earbuds, I'd feel the hairs on my arms stand up. Supermarket playlists were the worst. You can be minding your business, reaching for cereal, and suddenly the speakers above your head kick in. Now that you're out of my life, I'm so much better. Everybody else hums along, half distracted. I stand there frozen, listening past the mix. Under the main vocal, under the doubles and harmonies, there's a layer you only hear if you know to listen for it. Breaths that don't match the phrasing. A second vowel ghosting under the first. A faint consonant shaped like a mouth that never got credit. Sometimes, if I stay too long in the aisle, the PA will glitch for half a beat. The song will stutter, not enough for anyone else to notice. And in that stutter, I hear it. You shape the sound, we shape reality, right in between the words everybody knows. I don't watch award shows anymore. The last time I tried, they were running a montage. Clips of iconic performances, big stages, fireworks, breathless commentary about live excellence. One of Beyonce's sets came up. Big band, Big lights, bigger crowd. The announcer was saying something about how she never misses a note. She was running across the stage in heels, hair whipping, lungs supposedly burning. Her voice didn't budge. I already knew the trick from the old days, pre-recorded live tracks with breath and grit baked in, but this felt worse now that I knew what else might be under it. As she hit a long note, the screen glitched, just for a frame. Her face stretched, eyes going too wide, mouth opening a little too far. For that single frame, her outline doubled. Behind her, fused to her back like a second spine, stood the taller shape I knew from Studio B, arms around her shoulders, hands invisible but clearly resting there, holding her in place. Then it snapped back. The crowd screamed. The commentator called it flawless. I turned the TV off and sat in the dark, the afterimage still burning in my eyes. Sometimes I wonder how much of this is supernatural and how much is just industry. How many ghosts are real and how many are contracts and credits and NDAs wrapped around a person until they stop being human and become brand. I don't have an answer. What I do know is this. Every time you hand someone the title of perfect, you're offering them more than admiration. You're offering them your memory. You're letting them rewrite what you saw, what you heard, what actually happened, until the only version left is the one that serves them. I've seen takes I recorded with 4 voices come back with 1. I've watched posters blur themselves. I've heard songs reach backward and eat the people who helped build them. And behind one of the biggest stars in the world, I've seen a shadow that never steps fully into the room, because it doesn't have to. It lives in the glass, in the files, in the parts of your brain that decide what you will and won't question. That's the real horror, not the girl in the spotlight. The thing just behind her, teaching you to forget everyone else was ever singing. If you've made it this far, you probably feel that weight too. The sense that something about all of this has been off. So here's what I want you to do. Before the next song plays and the next story gets rewritten, like the video. Subscribe so you don't forget this. And tell me in the comments, did Beyonce have you fooled?